doing my job for me. Okay. So first, I want to thank Senators Durbin, Murray, and Stabenow for joining us. We just had a really spirited discussion in our caucus, a discussion that will continue. Senator Warnock gave a very powerful speech in terms of voting rights, and our discussions are continuing. We're going to have another very busy week in the Senate. As you know, we're in the middle of it already. On the legislative front, the Senate voted to invoke cloture on NDAA this morning. That's bicameral, bipartisan. We're working in good faith to get the defense bill done quickly. The Senate will also address the debt limit today using the fast-track process and avoid a first-ever default. As I've said, no brinksmanship, no default on the debt, no risk of another recession. This is a very good thing, and I am glad that we had cooperation between Democrats and Republicans. The two parties came together to pass legislation setting up this fast-track process for addressing the debt limit. The legislation will raise the debt limit to a level commensurate with funding necessary to get into 2023. And we'll vote on final passage later today, and hopefully the House will get it. We're trying to get it to them as quickly as possible. This is about paying debt accumulated by both parties, Democrats and Republicans. So I'm pleased both parties came together to facilitate a process that has made addressing the debt possible. Once again, I thank the Republican leader and my Republican colleagues who voted to address this issue and worked, and the Republican leader worked with me to come up with something that would deal with this problem effectively. That means we'll cross another major item off our December to-do list. Also this week, we continue working through the process to advance President Biden's Build Back Better Act here in the Senate along the timeline that I've laid out. This week, the bipartisan birdpath meetings with the parliamentarian will continue. I want to thank my colleagues, their staff, the parliamentarian, and her team for working through this important and difficult process. The President will also continue his conversations with our caucus as we work out the final details to move Build Back Better forward. So I thank my colleagues, I thank the President for their hard work and their commitment to get this done. Now, in addition to finishing our legislative priorities, we also have to work through a number of nominations that have been held up through Republican obstruction. The Republican obstruction of President Biden's nominees this year has reached a new low. We've had to file cloture on twice as many nominees at this point in the Biden administration than Republicans had to do under President Trump. Republicans are intentionally throwing sand in the gears of the Senate's confirmation process. It's not all of them, it's a handful, but the others just go along. The backlog now stands, because of Republican obstruction, at 158 nominees, a majority of which are held by only a small handful of Republicans. Democrats are working to clear as much of the backlog if possible by consent. If we cannot make much progress, we may need to stay and hold votes on nominees this weekend and next week until we do. Senator Durbin.
Of course, I understand that nomination issue as well as any member of the Senate. The Senate Judiciary Committee has been working overtime to report nominees to the calendar, and I understand the challenges that Senator Schumer faces. But the fact of the matter is, those that we don't finish this year, many of them will probably be returned to the committee. Historically, we've had an agreement with both parties to keep some on the calendar. We haven't reached it this time. We'll be back at square one with many of these nominees, not for a hearing, but for an actual vote before the committee. It just means further delays, and you have to ask yourself, for what purpose? We've already gone through the entire process on these nominees, and the votes have been taken. We have a matter of record. It is clearly an effort by some on the Republican side to stop the Biden administration from filling vacancies they need on the executive branch and on the judicial branch. I'm discouraged by what's happening with nominations, but I'm certainly encouraged by what we're apparently getting ready to do on debt ceiling. Senator Schumer said this is integral to the economy and time is wasting. We're hoping that we can get this done as soon as tomorrow and move forward. Then we should move to Build Back Better. I just want to make one note, and a historic note that I mentioned on the floor this morning. This year is the 100th anniversary of the discovery of insulin. It was 100 years ago when a Canadian researcher discovered it and started saving lives of those who were facing diabetes. Today, over 8 million Americans have diabetes. Many of them are facing costs of insulin which are prohibitive. They literally hardly can afford the money for these life-saving drugs. One of the elements in this Build Back Better is to help families pay for the insulin for their diabetic loved one. How basic is that? And when Senator McConnell comes to the floor and says, we can't raise taxes on the rich, I say to save the lives of those who suffer from diabetes, yes, we can, and we should. And that's just one of the elements, one of the many elements that's part of it. Senator Murray will tell you about more.
Senator Murray.
All right. Well, thank you. This has been a very busy year so far. Democrats have brought more expertise and more diverse representation to our courts by confirming nearly 30 circuit and district judges. We passed historic bipartisan investments to rebuild our ports and roads and bridges and ease pressure on the supply chains. We passed needed relief for families and communities in the American Rescue Plan and have seen vaccination rates rise, schools and small businesses reopen, and unemployment fell to its lowest level since the start of this pandemic. We know our work is not done yet, and as this week shows, we are not slowing down. Today, we are taking action to avoid a catastrophic default that would upend our economy, undermine our hard-won progress, and make it harder for people to buy a house or start a business or just make ends meet. We are also continuing to confirm qualified judges who will make sure that our courts reflect the diversity of the American people. And of course, we are hard at work on Build Back Better, which includes so many policies families need so very much. People are wondering, how do I get child care when I need to go to work? How do I afford the insulin I need to survive? How do I get the surgery I need without paid time to recover? How do I keep my family safe from the climate crisis if we don't start taking this seriously and building a more sustainable world? That's what the people in this country are focused on. It is what we as Democrats are focused on as well. We are going to put more money back into people's pockets. We're going to bring down the costs of child care and health care and cap insulin costs at $35 a month. And we're going to take bold action to fight climate crisis. And I would just say on a final note, as we continue to learn more about the awful scope of the devastation in Kentucky and Illinois and elsewhere, my heart goes out to all of the communities who were in the path of the recent tornadoes, the families, all the first responders who have been out there and dealing with the painful aftermath. Thank you.
Senator Stabenow.
Well, thank you. And first, as Senator Murray said, I would send out support and obviously concern and thoughts to everyone that's been hit by what is essentially the climate crisis right in front of our face, which is one of the reasons that it's incredibly important that we as a Congress act, and Build Back Better is a very important step forward in addressing the climate crisis. This has been a very productive year for us in the middle of a pandemic and all that comes with it in the pandemic. And despite the Republican Chaos Caucus that has been trying to block us step by step by step, we're moving forward. And we know that there's more to do. When all the supply chains are shut down in a global economy and we see the mismatch on products and goods and materials not able to come together at the same time when needed, or transportation or medical supplies or the labor force, we know that there is more to do, which is why we are doing it, which is in part what Build Back Better is all about, what the Innovation and Competition Act that we passed is all about, to bring those supply chains and jobs home. And the truth is that since the beginning of the year, this president, his first year, our first year in the majority, we have been laser focused on the pandemic and what has been related to that. I wish one Republican had joined us in the American Rescue Plan that funds the vaccines getting into people's arms, or schools being opened safely, or helping families and small businesses get through the pandemic, or provide the biggest tax cut for families. in the history of the country. We didn't have that, but we've moved forward where we can, working with colleagues on the infrastructure bill, on the innovation bill, on NDAA, on our climate bill in agriculture, on other bills, and where they will not, we are stepping up to get the job done and have people's backs. The other piece that I am extremely concerned about, and we all are, is that in the middle of all of the work that we are doing to put people first, we are seeing our democracy under attack. I commend our House colleagues for the work they're doing on the January 6th Commission, but we know that we are under attack as a democracy, and in Michigan, we're one of the states where that's playing out in real time, where there are multiple bills that the Republican legislature is passing to take away people's freedom to vote. So we've got to get the national bill, Freedom to Vote Act, passed to protect our democracy, in this great country. And that's something we are laser focused on.
Senator Schumer.
Yes, go ahead.
I know it's your goal, but can you guarantee a vote on Build Back Better before Christmas?
Look, the bottom line is right now there are good discussions going on. As I said, we're moving forward in with progress. The President's been speaking with Senator Manchin, and I look forward to hearing about further progress.
Senator
Yes.
How do you address the Republicans' criticism that this bill supported by the CBO would really, if the programs are extended, they cost $5 trillion?
You know, that's sort of.
And they say you haven't identified as a fake or making them.
First, that's a fake. Today, the Republicans are going to vote for a defense bill that it does not go out 10 years and is not paid for. In the BIF, a lot of Republicans voted for an infrastructure bill that does not go out 10 years. The bottom line is we have said that anything that's extended 10 years we will pay for, and it will not create any inflation because we're paying for it. Yes.
Senator Schumer, there have been a lot of meetings about voting rights lately, including with Senator Manchin. Not a lot of time left, though. Will you bottom line what you intend to do on that issue and how you'll change the filibuster rules to get that done?
Okay. The bottom line is our caucus, I think to a person, every Democratic senator is a sponsor of both the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voter Advancement Act. And I think there's universal view in our caucus that we need to get something done. What these Republican legislators are doing on a very partisan basis is really ruining, destroying, undermining our democracy. So there's a lot of active discussions going on. We believe, that there's a strong belief in the Senate that we can restore the Senate and at the same time deal with voting rights, and that's what we're aiming to do. Yes.
We're back to Build Back Better. I know Christmas is your goal, but there's a lot to do, and Senator Manchin is still kind of wishy-washy on where he is. What makes you think this can get done before Christmas, and isn't it more realistic to just push it to after?
The bottom line is, as I said, the parliamentarian is working. All our staffs are working. 11 of the 12 committee proposals have been published. And there are good discussions going on between the President and Joe Manchin, and we're making good progress there. Yes?
This morning you saw a historic increase in the producer price index. How much of a setback is that in your talk?
Look, as we said, unlike the BIF, which was not fully paid for, this bill is fully paid for. And in the eyes of most leading economists, liberal, moderate, even conservative, once you pay for it, inflation does not increase inflation, and in fact, this bill will undo some of the supply chain and the constraint on workers. There'll be more workers trained and everything else. So we believe it will not increase inflation at all, and in fact, will probably reduce it. Yes.
Do you believe Senator Manchin wants to pass the Build Back Better bill?
Senator Manchin's having good discussions with the President, as I said. And we're doing all of the things we have to do to get it in play. Yes.
Do you need further rules changes?
I can't hear you.
In order to get your nominations through, do you need further rules changes?
Well, we're hoping, as I said, we may have to meet at inconvenient times in the next week to get a lot of these nominations done. There is some talk that we can come to some kinds of compromises with the Republicans to get a whole lot of nominees done, but their obstruction is just unprecedented and unheralded. And we're going to work in every way we can to move the nominations forward. The place where we've made the most progress on nominations, despite Republican obstruction, is judges. We now, after today, will have 31 nominees to the federal bench. That is more nominees in the first term of a president than anyone, I believe, since Ronald Reagan. And these are great nominees, very diverse, both demographically and professionally. So we're moving forward on those. 2 more Court of Appeals judges, which, as you know, each takes 30 hours this week.
Senator Schumer?
Yes, last one.
Do you anticipate needing a supplemental for what we've seen in Kentucky and elsewhere?
Well, we'll see. We haven't yet talked about it, but we always try to help people who need help given natural disasters. Thank you, everybody.